There are sounds a doctor never forgets. The continuous beep of a fading heart, the silence that follows. That night, when the monitor flatlined, everyone believed he was already gone. Everyone, except me. Because every time someone said, "There's nothing more we can do," that body reacted, as if he could hear them. I was the attending physician, and that early morning, I realized that maybe death wasn't as silent as we thought. It was my third consecutive shift in the ICU, the kind of night when exhaustion weighs heavier than the air itself. The hospital slept, but inside, no one rested. The machines were the only ones breathing for us. Patient 307, male, 42 years old, car accident. Severe head trauma, multiple injuries, no neurological response for 5 days. His name was Daniel. His daughter, a 14-year-old girl, wouldn't let go of her father's hand for even a second. She repeated softly,
"Dad, please come back to me."
By then, everyone on the team had already accepted the inevitable. The tests were clear. The brain was shutting down, slowly. And as a doctor, I'd learned to recognize the moment when science has nothing left to offer. But there was something about Daniel that didn't add up. The first time I noticed was almost imperceptible, a finger contraction, a slight movement on the pressure monitor. I thought it was coincidence, until I heard a nurse whisper,
His daughter asked if he could still hear her, and his heart rate spiked.
That's when I felt that chill down my spine, the same one you feel when something challenges everything you've learned. I decided to observe. Over the following hours, I began testing quietly. I spoke into his ear, varied my tone, used his daughter's name. And every time, the same pattern, small changes, a physiological response without explanation. In the report, I only wrote variable autonomic activity. But inside me, a question began to echo. What if he can hear? That doubt never let me sleep again. The following hours were a silent game between me and that motionless body. Every time I said his name, Daniel, the monitor reacted. Small, almost imperceptible but consistent. It wasn't supposed to happen. Brain activity was minimal, almost non-existent. Everything we'd studied said there was no one there, and yet something was responding. His daughter, 14 years old, wouldn't leave his side. She'd sit next to the bed, holding her father's hand. At 2:30 a.m., his wife came in, red eyes but steady, like someone who had already cried all they could.
Will he hear us?
She asked, her voice breaking. We don't know, I replied, but talk to him. Sometimes, the voice of those we love reaches further than we imagine. We then began creating small rituals. His daughter told stories about everyday life. His wife read messages they'd exchanged before the accident. And I documented any minimal response, finger movements, changes in heart rate, small contractions. The rest of the team was divided. Some believed it was coincidence. Others called it reflex response. But no one could ignore the feeling that something extraordinary was happening. In the middle of the night, a veteran nurse approached, lowering his voice.
I don't care about explanations anymore. Something here isn't normal.
I spent hours sitting next to Daniel, listening to his daughter's whispers, observing minimal movements, trying to document every detail without losing clinical focus. During that shift, a critical situation occurred. Daniel's heart began to fail. Alarms blared, lights flashed, and the team went into emergency mode. I was caught between protocols and instinct. Every decision carried the weight of responsibility, but also the fear of being unfair to the family. After stabilizing him, I sat down again next to his daughter and wife. They were exhausted, but clinging to every sign of life, however small. He's trying to respond, I whispered. His daughter looked at me, eyes full of tears and hope, and asked,
"Doctor, does he feel what we're saying?"
I hesitated. Science couldn't answer. But something inside me said yes. For 2 days, we continued this careful approach. Every word, every touch, every story told in a low voice, and always a small reaction. The monitor reflected what the family felt. Each emotion had a biological echo, small but perceptible. At the end of the second day, the clinical director summoned me.
Doctor, we need a decision. The prognosis is irreversible. Insurance won't cover more days.
I left the meeting with the weight of the world on my shoulders. For the first time, I realized that medicine can be cold when the heart still feels warmth. I returned to the ICU, sat between his daughter and wife. I looked at Daniel and said quietly, "If you can hear me, give me a sign." For an instant, the monitor's beep changed, slightly, almost like a whisper. His daughter brought her hand to her mouth, incredulous.
Did you see that?
She asked. I did, I replied silently, knowing I couldn't explain it, but that something extraordinary was happening. The next morning, I entered the ICU with the feeling that something had changed that night. His daughter was already awake, sitting beside her father's bed. Her eyes gleamed with expectation and fear at the same time. His wife held his hands, murmuring words of encouragement, almost as if asking life's permission to continue. I checked the monitors. Absolute silence. And then, slowly, Daniel reacted. First a finger, then a stronger hand movement. The heart's beat stabilized, rhythmic, as if he decided to fight for one more day. His daughter's smile, his mother's embrace, the relief on the nurse's face beside us, it all seemed to fill the room with life. In the following days, each small movement was celebrated, each minimal response documented. Daniel wasn't fully conscious, but the family connection transformed every gesture into a sign of hope. The family became part of the care. Stories, memories, words of love, everything had an effect. I don't know if it was science, instinct, or something we still can't measure, but each reaction of his was connected to what they felt. During that period, I realized that medicine isn't just about organs or vital signs. It's about people, about human connections. It's about love, fear, hope, and regret, even when the clinical picture seems impossible. When Daniel finally began showing signs of minimal consciousness, I felt a mix of emotion and humility. We didn't just save a body. Something invisible, the bond between family and patient, kept him alive when everything indicated there would be no more hope. I left the ICU that night, looking down the silent corridor, thinking, science is powerful, but what moves life often goes beyond what we can explain. And in that moment, I realized that, as a doctor, each patient, each gesture, each story is a lesson about what it means to live and to listen. If this story touched you, if you felt what I felt in that ICU, subscribe to the channel and join us. Here, every story echoes in the heart of those who listen. And maybe you've also experienced or witnessed something that defies reason, something that deserves to be heard. Share your story in the comments. Who knows, we might turn it into our next narrative. Come back always. There's always another story waiting at the edge of life and death, ready to remind us that the unexplainable may be closer than we think. Until then, keep your ears attentive and your heart open.